The movie begins in the vibrant city of Tainan, Taiwan, specifically in the historic Wanhua district, which is one of the oldest districts in Taipei. It begins in a marketplace, where an old lady, Miss Lin, can be seen shopping for some things. Everyone wishes her a happy birthday, and their reaction to her tells them that she is a well-loved woman. It seems like she owns a restaurant, looks through the stuff she wants, and then gets it loaded in a mini truck. Back at her home, Lin starts cooking breakfast and serves it. There are only two people living in the house, Miss Lin and her youngest daughter, Jia. Jia is happy to see lobsters in breakfast, as they are her favorites. But when she realizes that her mother went to the fish market on her birthday, she gets annoyed, since she wants to be in charge of their restaurant for the day. She orders Lin to relax, at least on her birthday. Lin is skeptical that Jia might not be able to handle everything alone, but Jia is determined. After having breakfast, Lin goes to the bus station to receive her granddaughter, Clementine. She quickly rushes into Lin's arms and wishes her a happy birthday. The scene then switches to a dance studio in Taipei, where a man and a woman are rehearsing some steps. When some more people arrive, the lady decides to end the rehearsals, telling him to come back next week. She then leaves the studio to smoke and can be seen signing a divorce agreement. She is Lin's oldest daughter, Qing. Then a plastic surgeon can be seen talking to a patient. The doctor then gets a call from her daughter's teacher, and whatever the teacher says disturbs her. Back in the city, Lin can be seen riding towards home with Clementine. She gets a call from her mother, but Lin tells her to ignore the call and sing karaoke with her. The mother is none other than the plastic surgeon, Yu, Lin's second-born. Yu keeps calling her daughter, but she never picks up. At the restaurant, Jia is in the kitchen, overseeing the work. This is when she gets a call from the hospital. She rushes, hesitates before entering the patient's room, and finally musters up the courage to enter. The patient is her father, Chen Bo-chang, who is on his final bed. He is happy to see her and removes the oxygen mask to talk to her, but this induces a coughing fit. The woman assisting him helps him put the mask back, but he rejects the help. Instead, he whispers that he needs to go back home. Jia, unable to watch her dad in pain, leaves the room, crying. Soon, her father passes away. Later, a sad Lin can be seen sitting with the body of her late husband, with Clementine and Jia. Clementine is curious, because she doesn't know who the man is. Lin refers to the man as Jia's father, and doesn't care to elaborate much. Soon the other two daughters, Qing and Yu, arrive, and Jia breaks down in tears. They console their younger sister and inquire if they are going to cancel Lin's birthday party. To make everything easier, Lin orders that the part will go on as planned and nothing will disturb it. It turns out that her husband left her and their daughters. She didn't hear from him for many years, and now he gives him trouble. She is determined that she won't let him ruin her 70th birthday. Following her mom's orders, Jia gets back to the restaurant, which is packed with guests. Lin, Yu, and Clementine stand at the entrance, welcoming guests. They welcome Yu's husband, Sean, who is also a doctor. He apologizes for being late and inquires if it is okay that he invited a friend, Quan, to the party. Lin is happy that Quan is here, but their conversation is interrupted when Lin's brother and his wife arrive. They apologize, since her late husband passed away in their hospital, and then call him names because he decided to pass away on her birthday, and that too in the same city. Ignoring the comments, she welcomes them to her birthday party and ushers them in. They all go inside, while Qing stands out smoking. This is when she spots an old friend talking on the phone. The man is none other than Quan. She hugs him tightly, surprised at seeing him after almost 20 years. She playfully asks if he is talking to her girlfriend, but he laughs and tells her that the girl on the phone is his daughter, who lives with his mom, Quan's ex-wife, in Vancouver. Inside the restaurant, while having a hearty meal, Lin's brother tells her that he asked the other brothers to also come to the party, but they are becoming stubborn with age. Lin smiles and says that she is happy that he is here. The conversation then moves towards Clementine, and he asks about his studies and which medical college she would like to go to. Upon hearing her uncle's question, a shadow passes over Yu's face, and she answers on her daughter's behalf, saying that they plan on sending her to study in the States. Sensing the tense environment, Lin's brother gets up from his seat, deciding to give a speech in his sister's honor. After the speech, Lin gets on stage and sings a song. After the party, Lin and Clementine go to the hospital to find the person who brought their late husband there. It turns out that the person is a woman, Tsai Mei-lin. After getting what they came for, they go back home. Lin goes through Chen's stuff, reminiscing about the life they once had together. We are taken in the past to a woman cooking at a small roadside cart. A man arrives, informing her that they need to talk. He hands her a divorce agreement, and it is revealed that the man in Chen Bochang and the woman in Lin. She gets furious and asks him why he did this to her. She gave him everything he wanted for his business: money, jewelry, everything. At her outburst, Chen sighs and tells her that she didn't do anything wrong, but he failed his family. He believes that if he stays, he will be a loser forever. With a last request to sign the divorce agreement, he gets up to leave. On his way back, he bumps into Jia, who is a little kid. She is more than happy to see her father back, but Chen knows that he would have to break her little heart. He gives her some sugar cookies and leaves. Back in the present, Lin can be seen trying to get in touch with Tsai, but the calls keep going to voicemail. The next morning, while having breakfast, Yu and Sean discuss life, and Qing listens to them, a sarcastic smile on her face. On the other hand, Jia and Lin go to the funeral house to plan the last rituals of Chen. Jia begs her mom to bring Chen home one last time so that they can do the ritual there, but she declines. This is when Lin's brother arrives, recommending Lin leave all these preparations to Chen's friend, who brought him to the hospital. Torn between her brother and daughter, Lin hesitates to make a decision. But upon hearing that Chen's last wish was to come home, she makes up her mind. The funeral will be held at the funeral home. Lin and her daughters start preparing for Chen's funeral. Later, Qing can be seen sitting in a hospital's waiting area, but when her name is called, she doesn't respond. She leaves and goes out to smoke. This is when Quan finds her. He is surprised to see her there, and she admits that she came to see Sean, who is an oncologist. He is worried that she might have a tumor, but she laughs, saying that she came for a routine checkup case and that she completed her treatment 3 years ago. After her hospital visit, Qing goes back to her family. Lin is furious at her for being absent the whole day and orders to not create any trouble. Later at the dining table, Yu orders Clementine to go back home for her studies and come back a day before the funeral. But instead of responding to her mom, Clementine starts asking questions about her grandfather, whom she never met. The sisters share their memories of their father, and they all laugh. We are taken to the past, where a young Lin, accompanied by her elder 2 daughters, goes to a hotel to find Chen. She bangs at the door with a butcher knife in her hand and kicks it open, only to find a woman in the bed and Chen jumping out of the window. She shouts after him that they are broke, and instead of feeding his family, he is spending time with call girls. Furious, she leaves the hotel, only to be stopped at reception, demanding that she pay her husband's bills. Back in the present, Jia is able to get in touch with Tsai. She tells her that the funeral is not being held and asks her to inform her dad's friends about the funeral. The next day, a few people arrive at the funeral home. They tell Lin that they studied sutras with Chen and Tsai. Jia welcomes them and takes them to their seats. They all begin chanting the sutra for the peace of Chen's soul. Later, Yu and Lin bid Clementine farewell, as she is going back for her classes. Lin rides with her to the train station, and instead of leaving her and coming back, the 2 of them go on a mission to find Tsai. They reach a bar and find a woman there, Aiko. She is not Tsai, but someone who knows her. Aiko thinks that Tsai and Chen are on vacation in Tainan, since they visit the Mazu Temple every year. Lin is shocked that Chen kept coming to their hometown every year, but they never crossed paths. She gets up and leaves after giving a message to Tsai that if she has any problems with the funeral arrangements, she must come meet Lin. Aiko tries to stop her by saying that Tsai never wanted to steal Chen, but she doesn't stop. Back at the funeral home, Jia and Yu discuss the time Jia sneaked out of school to go see her dad. She tells Yu how he treated her kindly, took her to a cafe, and treated her to dessert. Their conversation is interrupted when their uncle arrives, who is stunned by all the decorations for the funeral. He calls Lin a kind-hearted woman and says that now that Chen has passed away, she would have to worry about Qing. Jia is curious why her uncle said such a thing. To answer her question, he starts telling him the story about how her father, Chen, disgraced everyone. Not able to hear anymore, Yu tells him to stop worrying about their family, shutting him up. Stunned at Yu's behavior, he leaves, saying that he has let go of the past, but it is Lin who is holding on to it. The scene switches to Qing at the hospital. She is informed about the lump found in her body, and a biopsy is needed to be done immediately. She tries to delay the process, making an excuse for her father's funeral, but Sean tells him that they need to start the treatment as soon as possible. She leaves the clinic to find Quan waiting for her. The 2 of them decide to go to sea. While walking on the bridge, she tells him about her life and how she traveled around the world with her dance group. Quan sighs, saying that he envies her free spirit since he himself is trapped in the same place. Qing locks eyes with Quan and leans in to kiss him. Later at the funeral home, Yu asks Clementine about her reason to come back, even when she was told to stay in Taipei. She is furious because if Clementine fails her test, she will have to go to language classes in the United States, which will take her focus away from the SAT. Clementine looks back at Lynn, but doesn't respond. Meanwhile, the people finish their chants and get up to leave. Lynn thanks them for coming from Taipei, and one of them tells her that it isn't too late to repent, hand her a box, and leave. After they go, Lynn gives the box to Gia, furious at the advice. Knowing that her mother might have some hand in the chanters leaving, she questions Lynn. They all get into fights, and Gia stomps out. Gia goes and finds Tsai and tells her about the advice given to her mom. Curious, she asks Tsai about the reason that caused the rift between her dad and her uncles. Instead of answering, Tsai takes her to a place she visited many times with Chen. How he used to tell stories about his time as a policeman. Gia is shocked because she never knew about Chen being a policeman. Gia blames her mom, thinking that she made Chen quit his job as a policeman. Tsai doesn't respond. Instead, she hands her a bag, which Chen brought for Gia from Taipei. She opens it to find a bag of her favorite sugar cookies. Her eyes well up, and she leaves with the cookie bag clutched tightly to her. Meanwhile, at the funeral house, rituals are being performed for Chen. The priest tells the daughter to kneel and cry for their late father. But Lynn stops them, saying that he is absent from their lives, so they need not cry for him. But she finally gives up and lets them kneel. During the ceremony, Clementine spots a cockroach and screams, but Lynn quickly smashes it. Shaken by this, Yu, Sean, and Clementine decide to take a break. This is when Sean gets a call. The conversation makes Yu suspicious, and she stomps away, annoyed. At home, Yu and Sean get into an argument. Yu believes that Sean always takes Clementine's side, making Yu the bad parent. Sean tells her to sit down calmly, and she questions if he wants to get divorced. He looks taken aback, saying that it is not what he wants. Thinking that she might have found someone in Taiwan, he gets heartbroken. But when Yu comments that she is not like Ching, going after any and every man, Sean realizes the misunderstanding regarding the phone calls. He holds her hands and tells her about Ching's situation and that she was the one calling him. The scene switches to Ching and Quan near the water, enjoying. This is when she tells Quan about the relapse of her cancer. He embraces her tightly, a promise that she won't be alone, and she breaks down into tears. Meanwhile, Lynn can be seen making her famous shrimp rolls. Gia sees her and asks if these are for Chen. Lynn ignores the table and sets the dinner table. Thinking of it as an opening, Gia inquires about Chen's reason to quit the police force. Lynn calls the low pay the reason, but Gia is not satisfied. When Yu and Sean arrive, Lynn ends the conversation and goes back to the kitchen. He settles down, and Yu goes to help Lynn. This is when she finds expired food cans in the kitchen and gets furious at Gia for feeding their mother this food. The sisters get into a fight, with Yu blaming Gia for not taking good care of their mother. Furious, Lynn gives Yu a shut-up call, and she leaves. Later at night, Clementine requests to sleep with Lynn, afraid that something might happen to her. Clementine sits down on the bed and asks how Lynn and Chen fell in love. Lynn smiles and hands her a box filled with old photographs and letters. As she reads the love letter aloud, a sad smile spreads on Lynn's face. Thinking that she might have hurt Lynn, she rushes back to her mom's room. Yu and Sean can be seen talking in her room, about how her father used to come home every time she won a medal at school. That is the reason she studied so hard and excelled in everything, just to see her dad one more time. But when she graduated from medical school, it was the last time she saw him. Clementine arrives, and Yu shows her an album of her and Sean's adulthood. When the conversation drifts to the topic of Clementine going to the States, Yu ignores it and gets up to sleep. Early the next morning, when half of the world is still asleep, Ching comes back home. She goes to sleep with Gia and finds her lying awake. She hugs her tightly, and they talk about their dad. Gia tells her that in his final moments, Tsai was with him, holding his hands, and he didn't look in pain. Hearing this, Ching makes Gia promise to hold her hands when she perishes. Gia laughs, thinking Ching is only talking like this because of their father's passing, not having a single clue about her cancer. While everyone sleeps in their beds, a figure can be seen standing outside the funeral house, decorated for Chen's final rituals. The camera zooms in, and it is Tsai, crying. The next morning, as the family is at the funeral house, a girl arrives. She is Mei, a cousin of the girls. She has come to Singapore to pay her final respects to Chen. Sitting with Lynn, she hands her an envelope, probably filled with money. Lynn is hesitant to take it but accepts Mei's persistence. Lynn asks about her life and is happy upon knowing that Mei is expecting her first child. After she leaves, Lynn watches her go, and it is revealed that Mei is actually Lynn's biological daughter, who was given to Lynn's brother at a very young age. The scene then shifts to Sean at the hospital. informing Ching that the biopsy report has confirmed their suspicions about her having cancer, and with some treatments, they can fight it, giving Ching 5 more years to live. She just sighs and says that 5 years are not worth all the pain. To escape from reality, she goes out and starts smoking cigarettes. Quan arrives and tries to convince her to get treatment, but she just orders him to stop caring about her. Instead, he hugs her tightly, and Ching's husband sees them. He, along with Ching and Quan, go to the funeral home, where everyone is present. It turns out that he had received the divorce agreement that Ching sent, but didn't want to sign it. He reminds her that he was there for her in her most critical time, but she dumped him after recovering. He did all he could for her, but she kept on cheating. Before things can turn into a fight, Lin tells them to calmly get on a middle ground. Ching sighs and responds that she acknowledges what he did for her, and that is why she knows that divorce is the best option. She knows that he deserves better than her, so he should let her go. Furious, she leaves the room, and he runs out after her. Some moments later, Quan finds Ching smoking. She is shocked to see that he is still here after everything he heard about her, and her tendencies to leave people and run. He smiles, and she walks away. Meanwhile, Aiko, along with some other women, arrive to pay their respects to Chen. Lin welcomes them kindly, not knowing that among them is also Tsai. Jia recognizes her and thanks her for coming. They all help Lin and the girls prepare for the funeral and then leave. Lin watches them go, a suspicious glint in her eyes. But before they can get out of her sight, Lin calls for Tsai, stopping them in their tracks. Their eyes meet, but Aiko quickly takes Tsai away. That night, Lin once again calls Tsai, but hangs up the call when she picks up. On the other hand, the girls all gather at Yu's place, discussing the day's events. Yu orders Jia to stop contacting Tsai, as it will hurt Lin. Their conversation is interrupted by a knock at the door, and they are all surprised to see Lin. They all sit down together in silence, which is broken by Clementine, who advises them all to talk to Lin, instead of guessing how she feels about Tsai. Finding it as an opening, Lin begins her story, how she worked hard all her life for the 3 of them, but they still prefer their dad, who hasn't contacted them for more than 20 years. She tells Jia how she worked day and night to convert their shrimp roll stall into a restaurant and gave it to her, and now all she cares about is Chen and Tsai. Instead of understanding her mother, Jia bursts, accusing Lin of not putting herself in Tsai's place. She says that Tsai loves Chen, but Lin doesn't. She is silenced by a furious Yu, who tells her to stop talking since she knows nothing. Sighing, Yu tells Jia that Chen stole their grandfather's stamp to get a loan from the bank for a business that failed. Their grandfather had to sell his clinic to pay off the debt, and this was a huge blow to his poor heart, and he passed away. Yu tells Jia that this is the reason their uncles hate Lin, and don't even let her go to their grandfather's funeral. Ching tries defending her father, but Lin cuts her mid-sentence, calling her a mirror image of Chen. She says that Ching got all his bad habits, which eventually led to her having cancer. Not knowing that the cancer has relapsed, Lin's words land as a huge blow in Ching's heart. Ching gets emotional, and this is when Yu tells everyone about Ching's condition. Lin is heartbroken and begins crying. No matter what, Lin is Ching's mother, and like any other mother, she promises to take care of her daughter. But Ching rejects the offer. Their conversation takes an emotional turn, and Lin leaves, saying that every child of hers is useless. The next day, Lin goes to the temple to pray for her family's and Ching's health. She begs the Lord to bless her and her family. Before leaving, she spots Tsai at the temple, praying. The 2 women engage in a conversation, with Tsai apologizing for visiting Chen's memorial place. Lin dismisses it as nothing, and Tsai, in gratitude, starts narrating her story. She and Chen met over a decade ago, and all the time he used to talk about coming back to Tainan to his family. But his mistakes of the past stopped him. When he knew that his illness wouldn't be cured, he came back to go home, but fate was not on his side, and he passed away. Lin is surprised at the fact that Tsai knows everything about Chen's feud with Lin's father. With a sad smile, Tsai reveals that Chen once told her that he took the loan for Lin, for the kids, and for his dignity. He took a big risk to make things better for his family, but he failed. Until the last breath of his life, he was sorry for putting the family through all this. Tsai tells Lin that he even used to think about the daughter they gave away. All these revelations make Lin emotional, and she quickly excuses herself. Left alone, Tsai begins crying. Later, she finds Lin in a corner of the temple, and tells her how Chen used to insist on worshipping the god of love. When she stops talking, Lin says that she would understand if Tsai hates her for never divorcing Chen. Tsai just smiles and calls it fate. Before leaving, she gives Lin a little red pouch. The final night before Chen's funeral, Lin opens the pouch to find gold jewelry inside. She summons all of her daughters and tells them about the gold their dad left for them. At this moment, she reveals to her daughters that she was the one who stole their grandfather's stamp, not Chen. Chen took the blame so that no harm would come Lin's way. She then hands every daughter her own pouch, along with a piece of advice. With tears in their eyes, they accept their gifts. She even gives one to Clementine, saying that she would be missed after going to the States. At this, Clementine turns towards Yu, begging her not to send her to the States. It turns out that Yu only wants the best for her daughter because overseas, she would have more options than just marriage and kids. Clementine understands and nods. Later, the three sisters gather to see what the pouches contain. They all find little pieces of jewelry inside. When the fourth pouch, which Lin gave to Mei, remains unopened, Jia questions her. They tell her that Mei is their sister and was sent away for her own good. The sisters begin talking and share the sugar cookies that Chen brought for them. That night, they are teleported back to their memories of the past, when their dad used to be with them, deeply in love with Lin, and they all were happy together. The morning of the funeral, Leah sees Qing leaving the house. She goes up to her and asks what she would do now. Qing replies that to save her life, the left side of her chest will be removed. Lin sighs, but promises to be here for her daughter and hugs her. Lin then gets ready, and before leaving for the funeral house, signs the divorce agreement Chen brought to her decades ago. She then puts it in a bag with a few other things and hands it to Clementine, ordering her to cremate it along with Chen. The movie ends when all three of the daughters, along with Clementine and Sean, arrive at the funeral house and begin waiting for Lin. Tsai also arrives for the ceremony, but there is no sign of Lin. Without waiting for more, they begin the rituals. Meanwhile, Lin can be seen singing in a cab, imagining and feeling Chen beside her. After the ceremony ends and everyone has vacated the place, Lin arrives and pays her final respects to her late husband.